So I don't know when it exactly happened, but somewhere along the way, I stopped living like myself and started living like someone else who made more sense. Not in like a super weird, dramatic way, but I was simply just doing what everybody else was doing. What people my age were doing, what looked responsible, what looked normal, what looked like I wasn't falling behind. To be honest, I thought I was doing life all right. And I followed the rhythm, and I listened to the advice, and I paid attention to what was praised, what was rewarded, and what got approved, and I watched what kinds of lives people admired and quietly adjusted myself to fit inside something similar. And it didn't feel fake at the time. It felt smart, like safe, like I was protecting myself from regret, but slowly, without realizing, I stopped checking in with myself, and I stopped asking what I actually wanted, and I stopped trusting my own instincts, and I stopped taking my own thoughts seriously unless they matched something I'd already seen validated somewhere else by someone else. I was outsourcing my validation every single day into other people and into what society told me was right, into what everyone else seemed to be doing, and I didn't even realize it at the time. I didn't hate myself back then, and that's the part people don't understand. I just didn't really like myself either. I felt neutral towards myself, slightly annoyed by myself, like I was always one step away from being better, more put together, more disciplined, more impressive, more confident. And until then, I didn't count. I wasn't good enough, and that's what I told myself. I wasn't good enough to trust my own thoughts. I wasn't good enough to want what I actually wanted. I wasn't good enough to just be myself and be me. I noticed that in the mirror first, I'd stand there and look at myself, not softly, not even kindly, critically. Like I was checking if I looked like someone who deserved the life I was trying to live. I'd pick at the little things, my skin, the bumps on my skin, my face, my body, things no one else would ever notice, but I noticed every single time. And it wasn't vanity, it was correction. Like if I just could fix this and fix this, I'd finally look like someone who had it together, someone who knew what she was doing, and someone who belonged. Think about that. I was standing in the mirror trying to correct myself into someone else. I carried that same energy inside my head all day. Every thought needed to be filtered, every emotion needed to be justified, every instinct needed permission. If I wanted something that didn't align with everyone else and what they seemed they wanted, I immediately questioned it. I told myself it was unrealistic, immature, not smart enough, not grounded enough, and I talked myself out of myself constantly. I made choices that made sense but didn't feel right, and I said yes when I wanted to say no. I stayed consistent with things that felt empty. I chased goals I couldn't even fully explain other than this is what you are supposed to want. I was being a drifter, right? Going through life on autopilot, doing what society told me to do, doing what everybody else did, never asking myself why, never using Socratic thinking, which is thinking deeper and asking yourself why 15 times, why it's happening and why I'm doing things. And then I'd wonder why I felt so disconnected, why I felt irritated with myself for no clear reason, and why I felt restless even when everything looked fine on paper. At night, I'd scroll and compare, watch other people live lives that looked so sure, so intentional, so confident, and then I'd feel this quiet ache in my chest. And it's not jealousy exactly, more like confusion. Like everyone else had gotten instructions I somehow missed. And I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why does this feel so hard when it's supposed to be fine? Life looks amazing and perfect on paper. Why does it feel so hard? But the truth was, I was betraying myself in small ways every single day. Choosing what was expected over what was true. Choosing what looked right over what felt right. And resentment built when you keep abandoning yourself like that. Not that loud resentment, that quiet resentment. The kind that turns into numbness, self-criticism, that constant feeling of being slightly off in your own life. That infinity loop, right? That cycle of not trusting yourself, seeking validation outside, feeling empty and doing it all over again. And I didn't have some big awakening moment. No dramatic turning point, just tiny pauses. Moments where I'd catch myself about to do something purely out of habit, out of pressure, out of this is what people like me to do. And something in me would hesitate. And sometimes I'd realize I didn't even know what I wanted instead. That was the scary part. Admitting that I've been living on autopilot for so long that my own desires felt unfamiliar. Like I had outsourced my decision-making for years and forgotten how to listen to myself. And I couldn't separate my real wants from the wants that had been programmed into me by society, by social media, and by everybody around me telling me what my life should look like. But there was relief in that honesty too. Because for the first time, I stopped pretending I was fine. I started asking myself, why? Why do I want this? Why am I doing this? Why? Going deeper and getting to the root cause. And I started choosing small things on purpose, letting myself want something without explaining it, letting myself not wanting something without defending it, and letting my options and opinions be mine, even when they didn't match the room. So I started valuing my opinion over other people's opinions because I know myself the best, right? I live with myself. I am in my world. Why was I outsourcing all of this validation into other people that don't even know me? They don't even know the depth of me. And slowly something shifted. I stopped feeling like I was constantly disappointing myself. I stopped feeling like I was performing in my life instead of living it. And I'd stopped treating myself like someone who needed to be corrected before she could be trusted. And I stopped lying to myself every single day. Because that's what I was doing, right? Every time I ignored my gut and followed the crowd, I was lying to myself. And when you lie to yourself every day, you don't trust yourself. And when you don't trust yourself, you have to seek validation from everybody else, and that's the loop, that's the trap. When you say you're gonna do something and you don't do it, obviously you're not gonna trust yourself, and that trust conveys to every other area of your life when you pick out your outfit, when you wanna buy new shoes, when you say you're gonna go to the gym, you just don't do it because you don't trust yourself, you don't even believe in yourself. And that's when I realized something simple and heavy. I didn't dislike myself because I was flawed. I didn't even dislike myself because I was not being myself. Think about that. Liking yourself doesn't come from fixing everything. It comes from stopping the quiet self-betrayal, from finally standing on your own side instead of constantly overruling yourself to fit in. Keep up or make sense. It comes from being a woman of your word to yourself and telling yourself you're gonna honor what you're actually wanting in life and then doing it. So I'm not saying I have this MasterCard. I don't. And I still catch myself and I still hesitate and I still feel the pull to defend and to default back into what's familiar and approved. But I feel closer to myself now, more honest and less split. And I took back control of my mind and I took back control of what I actually wanted. I stopped letting other people's expectations run my life. And I'm telling you this not because I have the answers, but because I know what it feels like to live a life that looks right and feels wrong. To look in the mirror and feel disconnected, to follow the rules and still feel lost, to do everything you're supposed to do and still feel empty. If that's where you are, you're not alone. You're not broken, you're not behind, you're not failing. You might just be tired of living someone else's version of your life. You might just be tired of being a drifter, of going through life on autopilot, of doing what everybody else tells you to do without ever asking yourself why. And if so, I understand you more than you know. So this is your sign. Stop betraying yourself in the small moments. Stop talking yourself out of what you actually want and stop outsourcing your validation into people who don't even know you. Start asking yourself why. Start trusting yourself. Start being a woman of your word to yourself. And be that girl that finally chooses herself. Be that girl that stops performing and starts living. Be that girl that takes back control of her own life. She's in there, the real you, underneath all of the noise and underneath all of the expectations. Underneath all the versions of yourself you created for other people. She's waiting and she's worth finding. I promise.